To get started, you will need 3 to 4 pounds of pork meat. I am using pork shoulder meat. I went ahead and chopped up all of my pork meat and I have it sitting in water. I like to do this just to help lessen the scum and foam when I start to boil it. Okay, on to my chiles. I will be using 4 Chile Anchos, and this pack is 1.5 ounces. I'm using 2, so that would make it 3 ounces of Chile Ancho. I'm also going to be using 2 Chile Arbol, and this is very hot, so I'm only using 2. Using these 2 will not make my pozole ultra hot. It's just going to give it a nice little kick, and I actually have a low tolerance for heat, so this is not going to make it spicy. I'm also going to be using 5 Chile Guajillos, and this is another mild to medium heat chile. Basically this combination it's going to be a mild pozole just with a little kick. Next, I'm just going to remove the stem and all the seeds from all of the chiles. I would like to add, you don't necessarily have to use all these types of chiles. If you just have Chile Ancho, use Chile Ancho, which is a mild chile. You could use just Chile Guajillo. There's times where I only use Guajillo and Cascabel. It just depends what you have in your home and what your preference is. But I will say, if you use New Mexico chiles or Chile Arbol, those are very spicy, so be careful, because I made the mistake of buying New Mexico chiles thinking, oh, it's mild. No, it is spicy, so just be sure to be aware of that. I also want to show you that I boiled some water, and that's what I will be steeping my chiles in. So I'm just going to continue removing the stems and the seeds from my chiles, and eventually they are going to end up in that boiling pot of water. Okay, so now that they're all cleaned, I am going to let my chiles steep in this hot water for at least 30 minutes until they become pliable and soft. Okay, and I just want to go over the other ingredients that I will be using. I have half of a large onion. You could use a whole onion. This one was just really large, so I halved it. I'm also going to be using a bunch of garlic. Use however much garlic you like, and if you don't like fresh garlic or you don't have it, use garlic powder. I'm also going to be using 2 bay leaves, and these 2 bay leaves are going to go into the pot when I start boiling my pork meat. And for the spices, I will be using, let's get these onto the board here. Here I have 1 tablespoon of kosher salt. I'm going to use this again when I start boiling my pork meat. I'm also going to be using 2 teaspoons of ground cumin, and I have here 1 full tablespoon of dried oregano. And again, all of these spices, use what you like. If you like less or if you like more, adjust it to whatever you like. I just think this works for me when I make it. I also just wanted to point out, if you've seen my other videos, or even if this is your first video, I tend to use coarse kosher salt when I prep a lot of my food. But if you are the type of person that uses table salt, or you know, the finer salts, the measurements that I use might not match so well with this type of salt. So if you are using this salt, I wanted to point out that, for example, in this recipe, I'm going to start off with a tablespoon of coarse kosher salt. So if you are using this table salt, you want to probably use only 2.5 teaspoons. You want to start off with 2.5 teaspoons. just to be safe, because if you're using a full tablespoon of table salt, you might oversalt the pozole. So that's just something to be aware of. Okay, next here I have 2 chicken flavored bouillon cubes, and I'm using the Knorr brand. And I'm going to be adding this to 4 cups of hot water to create a chicken broth. Now, if you have 4 cups of your own chicken broth or chicken stock that you make, use that. But I actually just like to use chicken bouillon cube from Knorr. So anyways, I'm going to mix this up until it's combined. And this is also going to be going into our pozole. Okay, here I have an 8-quart stock pot, and in it I have about 4 to 4.5 liters of water. I believe I measured out about 18 cups of water. Now I'm just going to add my pork meat, and I went ahead and rinsed it and drained all of the water it was soaking in. Next I'll be adding 1 tablespoon of kosher salt, and I'm just going to let this come up to a boil and let it cook for about an hour. And I almost forgot, I'm also going to be adding 2 bay leaves. And this is actually 30 minutes of boiling at a hard boil, and all of this scum and foam has produced. So now what I'm going to do is remove all of this. It is very important for a good pozole, even when you're making menudo, or even if you're making a soup or boiling meat, to get rid of all of the impurities and scum and foam and even the fat from the top of your broth, because it's going to make a world of difference in your finished product. After cleaning all of the scum out, I'm going to let it continue to boil, and remember, we're boiling this for an hour. Okay, so while the pork meat is boiling, here I have my chiles. They are nice and soft. And now I am just going to add my onion, which I have roughly chopped. And I'm also going to add my roughly chopped garlic. I also decided to add my tablespoon of dried oregano, and this is because I think it helps break up some of the oregano so you're not kind of choking on the oregano leaf when it's in the broth. And just to get things moving along, I'm going to add about a cup of the chicken broth. Okay, so now that my chile is pureed and blended, I am going to strain it. Now, you don't have to do this, but this is what I like to do, again, to achieve a nice clean broth. Okay, so midway straining my puree, I had to check on my boiling pork over there and clean out a little bit of more foam and scum. So I went back and here I am. I have finished, and I did use a little bit more of chicken stock to go ahead and help strain some of the chile. It got really thick, but this is what I ended up with, all of the skin. Okay, so my pork has been boiling for an hour, or a little over an hour. And here is all the scum and fat and foam that I removed. And I also fished out those 2 bay leaves, because now I'm going to add the rest of our ingredients. So to this pot, and if you notice the water has dropped significantly because it's been boiling for an hour, so I'm going to add the rest of our chicken stock. And the reason why I didn't add the chicken stock first is because I knew I was going to take out some of the liquid while removing the foam and scum, and you don't want the chicken flavor, you know, to be removed. So I'm just going to give that a good mix. And now I am going to add my pureed chiles, but first I'm going to add the 2 teaspoons of ground cumin to the puree and just give that a mix. And into the pot it goes, and you don't want to lose any of that puree, so I'm actually going to dunk this bowl into the broth or the stock, and just to make sure I get all of that wonderful chile puree and flavor out of the bowl. Now that I've added all of the ingredients, I am going to give it a good mix, and I'm going to bring this up to a boil. And once I bring it up to a boil, I'm going to cover with a lid, and I'm going to let this cook for another hour. You want to make sure your meat is nice and tender, and if it needs to go longer than that, by all means, but another hour should do it. I also wanted to show you that I have my burner at a medium to medium high heat. And again, I'm just going to let this go for an hour. Now it has been 1 hour, and I want to show you how soft and tender the meat has become. And at this point, I think my meat is ready for the next step, and that would be adding the hominy. Here I have about 5 to 6 cups of white hominy, and the reason why I measured it in cups is because all I had was this giant can of hominy. It's like a 6-pound can of hominy. Let me show you so you kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about. Here is the giant can that I ended up having to buy because I couldn't find a smaller one, so I'm just showing you here. I used about half of this can. Now if you double the recipe, this 6-pound can would be perfect for a double of the broth and meat ratio. But if I just dumped in this whole can into my pot of pozole, it would just be hominy overkill. So you only want to use 5 to 6 cups in this recipe. And what I also did is I strained it and I gave it a rinse. That's why I have it in a strainer. So now I'm just going to add it to my pot of pozole. And now that I've added my hominy, I'm going to let this whole pot cook for an additional 30 to 45 minutes, or until the hominy comes out tender. It still has to have its texture and a bite to it, but right now it's a little too hard to just start eating. So you want to let your pozole continue to cook for about 30 to 45 minutes. Okay, the pozole is on the last leg of cook time. I want to discuss toppings. And traditional toppings for pozole is shredded cabbage. I have diced onion. And let's not forget my favorite, lime. I have some lime wedges. And I also like to serve this with additional dried oregano. I know I have some family members that like to give a couple shakes of the oregano into their bowl of menudo or pozole just for an added spice. And I don't have it here today, but you could also use sliced cherry radishes. Those are really good. Okay, so my pozole is done. So now I am just going to serve myself a bowl and dress it accordingly to the way I like my pozole. And I just want to show you how wonderful everything came together. The broth is perfect and the meat is tender, the hominy is done. So now all there's left to do is add my toppings. I'm going to add some shredded cabbage, a little bit of diced onion, and of course, my favorite, a squeeze of lime. As always, the recipe will be located in the description box below. I hope you give this recipe a try. I hope you like it, and thanks for watching. Hey guys, you can click on the video icons for more recipes, or you can click on my picture icon to subscribe. Thanks for watching.